Keyvan Macedo, that is the Director of Sustainability of Natura & Co. That it's a global group from the beauty area. There has like some brands like Natura and Avon. And he'll be sharing with us a little about his experience inside Natura implementing these SDGs, as well as promoting the sustainability in their products and in their processes. So I would like to thank you, Keyvan, for coming, for accepting the invitation. It's a pleasure to have you here on the project. And also, I would like to thank everyone for the participation. And I hope you all enjoy. It's a very special and unique opportunity. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to learn a lot. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Pollyana. Thank you, Renata, for the invitation. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. I hope that there is no issues sharing the screen. If you can just tell me if you can see my screen. I'm just going to put in presentation mode now. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you, Renata. So I saw Fabiana, it's a mutual friend that made the introduction. So hi, Fabi. Has been a long time that we do not see each other, at least in person. So I was very pleased when you made the introduction to Renata and to the project. And I hope that I'm going to be able to make all the connections, because in the end of the day, as you're going to see in my next slide, I'm a food engineer by graduation, but I do not work in the food sector anymore. I used to work in a previous company, Unilever, in the food division, but now I shift to the beauty sector. So I think that the idea today is just try to offer a glimpse about what we have been doing the past few decades about trying to develop a business model that support biodiversity and climate. And of course, as Pollyana introduced it, climate can affect a lot of things, including the availability of food and this connection to hunger and poverty as well. So just an introduction of myself, you can use the QR code to make the connection with me via LinkedIn. As Pollyana introduced, I'm the sustainability director for the holding of Natura & Co. that currently gathers two beauty brands, Natura and Avon. I am a food engineer, as I mentioned. I have been working inside innovation/R&D projects for the last 23 years, and I have an experience related to sustainability agenda in the last 13 years. I start my career in a company that is called Refinações de Milho Brasil, RMB, that no longer exists anymore. Then I shift to Unilever, then I shift to Natura, and 4 years ago I moved to the holding level of the group that is called Natura & Co. I'm also a vice chair on ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, at the Global Environmental and Energy Commission that they have over there, and I'm visiting professor for so many organizations, including IBCG, FIA, MAUA, WOW, and Trevisan. And I have the privilege to continue the work that my grandfather has done for so many years in this NGO in the countryside of Brazil, in a city called Porto Feliz, very close to Itu, for the last plus than 20 years at the Associação Monte Carmelo. So starting in a very, very, very brief introduction about the group Natura & Co, because of course the name is a parental name on Natura Cosméticos, the mother company of the group. And of course, there is a lot of confusion about the N Co, which does not represent about the company and does not represent about cosmetic, but represent two situations: the combination between the and the co, like to try to give the sense about eco, reinforcing our passion for interdependence on ecosystems, and of course to try to seek for the balance between human and nature. But also the co stands for cooperations, co-creations, collaboration. So in this sense about the qualitative aspect. So I think that is things that we have pursuing. That is the reason that our aspiration is to dare to innovate to promote the positive economic, social, and environmental impact. And of course, we want to become the best beauty company for the world and not to the world, because in a sense about how we can work, of course, to combine and deliver some benefit to the society. As Pollyana introduced it, of course, we have been facing, and it's very critical, I think, that nowadays, these kind of heatings and the way that the temperature has completely changed in the last few years. So climate crisis is one of the major topics that we see around, of course, together with the loss of biodiversity and inequalities, are the three major concerns from the United Nations, and of course should be the concern from the governments around the world. You can see, of course, some articles from the main newsletters across the world that is giving this red alert about how we are going to deal with this kind of situation. So it's very clear that, and it has been very unusual that we reach this level of temperature, especially for those who live in cities, that even though São Paulo, it's a city that we have seen a hot temperature, not as well as Rio de Janeiro, but of course we never faced this situation about, let's say, extreme weather. But also it's important for us to recognize that nothing is new. In the end of the days, of course, we have been dealing about the effects on the human development, effects on the climate for so many decades. So since 1950s, we have seen this kind of effect. I always used to highlight this article that you can see on the right-hand side of the slide from the New York Times. It's the title of this article, it's called How Industry May Change Climate. But if you take a look about the arrow that you can see in the bottom of the slide, it's a point in the date it was published. It was published May 24, 1953, which means that we are talking about the New York Times. We are not talking about any scientific magazine, which means that even in an open newsletter, we have been dealing with this situation. So it's not a matter, and everyone's seeing about the film that the former Vice President of United States of America, Al Gore, has released in 2006 about the increase of the temperature, an inconvenient truth. It's not a matter about something new that it was just discovering this century. Actually, it has been a while that humanity is trying to address the situation. As Pollyana highlighted, United Nations in 2015 has released this agenda that is called the Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs is the acronyms that you use to refer the Sustainable Development Goals, which is in Portuguese we use to reference as the ODS. So, and if you take a look, we are talking about 17 SDGs, and the SDGs number 13 is the one related to the climate action. So I'm not going to read everything that is on the slide, but it's very clear that it's the fact that human has done across the emissions of CO2 equivalent, which is the way that we represented what we call the GHG, which stands for the greenhouse gases, that basically we are talking about 6 types of gases. Well, 2 of them are family of gases that we do a conversions on in CO2 equivalent. And why we do about CO2? Because CO2 is the most abundant of those gases and the one that has the lower effect. So that is the reason that the IPCC, which is the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel, used to make the reference, and then as one, and then the other ones, the global potential warming of the other gases, we do as a reference on CO2. If you take a look about, this is the report from 2023, but if you take a look about the recent report from World Economic Forum related to the global risk, they launch this in January every year when they do and they host this famous event called Davos. So if you take a look, of course, you can realize that the situation has not changed from the last few years. So if you take in consideration the first risk on the long term, we are talking about failure to mitigate climate change. The second one is failure on climate change adaptation. But even so, if you take in consideration the third and the fourth one, it's of course totally connected. It's the nature disaster and extreme weather events on the third place, and the fourth place is biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, as well as number 6, which is the natural resources crisis. And of course, this will, of course, as a consequence, deliver the number 10, which is the large-scale environmental damage and incident. And it's very good. And I do invite everyone to try to take a look about this report. It's a very long report. We're talking about almost 200 pages, but there is a lot of different types of infographics that cross and make these connection between one topic and the other one. And based on the size of the lines, you can see which are the effects that has more connections to the other one. Of course, a lot of companies design what we call the materiality matrix, or the double materiality matrix, which is the one that you cross. What is the impact that you deliver to the society? What is the impact that you have in your own business? Just to try to cross this matrix in order to establish what are the priorities that we need to address. And clearly, you can see based on the tables that you can see on the right-hand side that climate action is the first one on both sides. So definitely it's a topic that can be connected to the other topics that you have seen in both sides, but definitely is the urgence that we need to address. So because of these urgence, I have tried to take this extract from the message that we have from the chairman from our board of directors, and we have 3 chairmen. That is the reason that it's in plural, that we publish in 2026, referring to 2026. So, and when we publish, of course, in 2007. So basically, this year was 20 years later than the famous report that is called Our Common Future, or the Brundtland Report, which was the first time that we have the development of the definition, and we have a common definition about sustainable development. And that is the reason that we have these connections, that we see this historical fact about there is this increase about awareness about global warming. And now we see these possibilities that we need to make the changes in order, of course, to change the patterns of behaviors, the predictions, and the consumptions, of course, to have our responsibilities to the future generations. So we want, of course, to deliver the planet as good as we found the planet when we were born to the next generations. And we are not talking about one generations after ours. We are talking about different levels of generation that is going to be born in the next decades, and of course the next century as well. So that is the reason that this year 2007 was the year that Natura decided that we need to do something. So we created this program that we call Carbon Neutral Program, which has 3 pillars. Of course, first of all, you need to set what are the baseline that we have. So that is the reason that you need to establish the inventory, just to measure exactly the sources of emissions and the levels of emission that we have. So then you can move to the second pillar of the program, which is the reduction. Since you have now the baseline and you know exactly the source of emissions, you need to create an action plan in order to reduce your emissions. And then you move to the third pillar, which is the one that probably you're not going to be able to reduce to zero. And so that is the reason that we do consider that all the emissions that you cannot avoid, you should make the offsetting, which means that you need to repair the damage in equivalent basis that you have created or you're not able to avoid. But of course, it was an agenda that belongs just to Natura. When we created the group in 2020, we also revealed to the consumers, to the stakeholders, that we need to go beyond the things that we have established in the past. So why not design a sustainability vision for 2030? So a 10-year action plan. And of course, definitely, we need to address the climate crisis. So we created this vision that we have 3 pillars. The first pillar is to address the climate crisis, but also is to protect the Amazon. And always we have this doubt about why we just selected the Amazon rainforest instead of so many biomes that we have in Brazil or other biomes that we have across the globe. It's because, of course, we have a lot of connections with Amazon rainforest. We are going to see one of the good examples later in my presentation. But also, we need to understand that Amazon here, it's representing the biodiversity in general terms. It's not just related to the Amazon. And just to give you a glimpse about, I'm not going to address, you can see that on the middle, on the top of the slide, you can see the connections, at least with the three most important SDGs connected to this specific pillar. And then you can see that we split in three different buckets. The first bucket is related to the net zero on greenhouse gas emissions. The second one is protection of the Amazon. The third one about how to develop the science-based target for biodiversity. And each one of them, we have several targets that we have established. So, but just to give a better understanding, this is the challenge that not only Natura & Co. is facing, everyone is facing. So all the private sectors and the public sector need to address the decarbonization of our supply chain, which means that, and you can see that Natura is here on the third layer, on the third tier, which is the one that I named manufacturing. So all the suppliers from Natura, since the extraction of the raw ingredients and the packaging materials, and after Natura receiving those materials and producing the excellent products that we have in our portfolio, and then we sell to the market. We have the logistic to distribute the products, and then of course we have the, especially this direct sales model on the social selling, but also we have some retail shops. We are going to reach the consumers, and consumers, after they use and they consume our products, they are going to make the disposal of the packaging. But if you can give a zoom about exactly the initial of this process, we are talking about, especially in the extractions of the raw ingredients, it's a matter about how we can guarantee the reforestations and afforestations on the supply chains that we have inside our business model, as well as how we can try to enhance and increase the use of what we call the bioingredients, ingredients from the biodiversity, and mainly from the Brazilian biodiversity, sustainably sourced in the Amazon rainforest. But also, we understand that nature and local communities cannot be disassembled, so they are embedded. So that is the reason that also you can see the relationship with local communities, because they are the ones that are going to not only preserve and restore the forest, but also they are going to source to us those ingredients. But also there is this challenge, especially the connection, the overlap that we have on food, which is nature, because Mother Nature is the one that sources the ingredient, has been sourcing us the ingredients that we need to have for our survival. But also you can see, of course, two expressions. And at sustainability agenda, we have so many acronyms. So normally you need to have this kind of dictionary or this kind of glossary in order, of course, to guarantee that you're referring to the right expression, so you can translate the right expression. So the first one, NBS, stands for nature-based solution. The second one, NCS, stands for nature climate solution, which is very similar. In the end, I'm not sure why we developed so very close definitions. We can just, of course, try to centralize in just a single expression, but that is the issue that we need to address in our world. So basically, we are going to see this kind of connection, and inspiring from nature, we have tried to address how we can try to create a business model that could address the social and environmental challenge that we face in the region. So you can see here, and of course, the ones that are more interested, you can go to the Natura & Co. website and you can seek for our carbon neutral program, where, as I mentioned before, there is this third pillar about offsetting. And here it's a map about the offsetting projects that we have implemented since 2007. You can see that the majority of the projects are located in Brazil, but also you can see some colorful dots in the other countries And you can see that there are more than a single project in Colombia and Peru. And why we decided to have those countries having more projects than the other one, it's because, of course, we want, and we have a prioritization to try to development and to purchase those projects inside the Amazon rainforest. And Amazon rainforest is not just present in Brazil, it's present in other 8 countries in South America, and of course, Peru and Colombia are the ones very in the borders of Brazil. So that is the reason that they have more projects than the other regions. And of course, I don't think it's very easy to read. Each one of the colors stands for a different type of the project. But my idea is not to explain because it's a very technical details about exactly the difference between one project and the other one. But the one that is very easy for us to understand is restorations or reforestation. So is the one that we should plant trees in order, of course, to recover the ecosystems. And with ecosystem recover, of course, we cannot generate the benefit on climate change side. We can generate benefits on biodiversity recovery. With the biodiversity recovery, we can have benefits at the fauna and also at the flora. But here you can see, of course, that we try to develop so many different reforestation projects, mainly that the guideline from the company is try to use multi-species. It's not a matter about just plant eucalyptus and pinus, which is very common for other type of industry, because we do consider that it's not only a matter about beauty, it's a matter about enhance the ecosystem, but also it's a matter about getting better resilience, because each one of the species has a different resilience about the weather. And also there is these famous expressions about REDD+, which REDD+ are the projects that we do the conservation of the standing forest. So basically there is a pressure in the surrounds of the area. And of course, we give an incentive to the communities in order for them not to chop down the trees and stand the tree as it is. And there is this expression about high level integrity forest, which is basically the forest that has never been reached, has not been invaded by the humans, which in the end, it's a high level fauna and flora species in this area. So, and there is a lot of, as I mentioned before, ecosystem benefits about extending those forests. Here, it's a very interesting picture because you can see on the left hand side of the slide, it's an area about someone that belongs to one of the cooperatives and communities that source the ingredients for us. And we pay for ecosystem service, so you can see that there is a lot of preservation. In the middle, you can see there it's a road, a land road. And then, of course, in the right-hand side of the slide is someone that does not belong to this cooperative, is a non-cooperative. And you can see that it's very clear to see the difference. So the idea is that not only we give this kind of support, but also how we connect to the SDGs is because this kind of agenda connects to what we call the NDC enhancement. And the NDC is another acronym that stands for National Determined Contribution. Each one of the countries were called from United Nations to give their contributions about reducing their emissions of greenhouse gas in order, of course, to reduce the global warming effect. So, of course, if you can have any kind of business model that support the standing forest, there is a reductions on the pressure of deforestation, and therefore there is a reduction on the effects on global warming directly. And also here is a very interesting picture about how the private sector is always try to seek for new alternatives in order to have a better resilience. And I think that I hope that you can see in the details, because you can see that the area that it's represented the monoculture. So you can see there is very aligned the crops and so on, but also there is a space between one line and the other one. Then there is, of course, you can see in the bottom what we call the forest. So that is the one that I told you that is high level integrity. So a forest that has never been any kind of interaction with humans. But there is a connection that we can try to be inspired by nature in the standing forest and try to influence the way that we produce food. So instead of having monoculture, why not we have what we call agroforest solution, which means that we are going to combine the forest with the production of the food. These technique and these systems will increase the resilience of the system. Of course, it means that in some of the cases that you cannot use machines, and in some of the cases, of course, to make the harvesting of those crops. But in the other hand, has better results on the resilience. And we have been developing this project about palm oil for the last 13 years in order to prove that these techniques can give a better result. And basically seen a lot of difference on the productivities in the areas that we made this conversion. So people always ask us about the way of making products. And you can see by the bottom of the slide that we have some guidance that we need to achieve. And this is a specific line on ecos or ecos. In Portuguese, we have achieved a very interesting result. So there is a higher demand in Brazil, which is, it's unusual to say because Brazilian, some of them, of course, follow the vegetarian dietary, but a few of them follow the vegan dietary. But even so that consumers are not following these dietary restrictions, they were demanding for us that we want to have a vegan cosmetic products, which for us sound a little bit weird, but then we understood that the consumer has this perception, which is not fully right, that a vegan cosmetic is more natural than, let's say, a normal cosmetic. Of course, there's a difference between the levels of renewable ingredients that we put in one side and in the other one, but one product in the other one, from one company to the other one. But of course, definitely is not necessarily that just with vegan ingredients you're going to achieve a natural product. Because in the end of the day, there are some situations about honey, bee wax, that how we can replace for in some of the products. But also you have the use of biodiversity ingredients from the Amazon rainforest, ecological packaging, the climate commitment about being carbon neutral products, no animal testings, and natural orange formulas that we are pursuing. And how we do this, and in the business model, of course, we have been as a B Corp company since 2014. So we have the label of Sistema B in Brazil, but also we have this label, which is very unique from UEBT, which stands for Union on Ethical Biotrade, which is the label of sourcing with respect. And you can see the label, it was created based on the symbols of leaves from the trees, but also the way that we combined represent not a lion, because of course we told the designer there is no lion in the Amazon forest, but probably a jaguar that we have in the region. So you can see the leaf as the head of the jaguar, and then you can see the two leaves on the sides that also represent and define the shape of his face, but also is in a way that you can see like two hands like protection. And then you can see the eyes and the nose. Many people have seen this brand, and of course, this label is the first label that when we launched the Ecos brand or the Ecos brand so many years ago, basically in the year 2000. So as you can see that the statement of this advertising is calling that Ecos was in front of their time. So, and of course, we transformed the beauty in sustainability before sustainability has become a major issue. So, and also there is this question in the left-hand side of the picture, asking that which area is more rich, a square meter in the Paulista Avenue or in the Amazon rainforest. So it's a sort of provocation about people need to stop a little bit and rethink and reshift their mindset about which is the thing that we need to give more value. And of course, there is this concept about helping and supporting the standing forests, and of course, how we can leave the beauty in a way that we protect local communities, but also we protect the Amazon rainforest. We have made some advertising in the past with Gisele Bündchen, which many of you know as a famous model, but also she's a very activist when we're talking about the protections of the Amazon as well. And then you can see some of the results. Of course, ECHOS was launched in the year 2000. It was in a way that we are committed to the conservation and sustainable use of the Amazon biodiversity ingredients, but also how we can source with good practice, how we can try to respect people's rights, how we can recognize the role of familiar agriculture in order to conserve and to preserve and to restore the Amazon, but also how we can promote equitable sharing of benefits from all natural resources from the planet. And also you can see that Amazon, why? There's a lot of questions about why we select the Amazon. And Amazon rainforests represent the present and the future of generations. And there is a lot of benefits, especially about rain in the south of Brazil or southeast of Brazil, that we call the flying rivers, based on the protections of the Amazon rainforest. You can see here, of course, that also the Amazon is a very important source of our innovation, not only regarding the ingredients, but also regarding, we are going to see in the next slide about traditional knowledge. Of course, currently, this is the data from 2022. We have not published the data from 2023, but we almost reach 10,000 families. So here you can see that 2022, we have 9,120 families in an average of 4 people per family. There is a manufacturing facility that we call the Eco Park that we have installed in a city called Benevides, which is like 45 minutes from Belém, the capital of the state of Pará. And currently, the actions that we do with those communities, we have a direct conservation of 2 million hectares, which is, just to give an idea, it's half of the size of the Netherlands. And of course, by that time, we have been working with 41 communities. Now we reach 44 communities. And since we started this Amazon program, we have invested in the regions between these periods of 11 years, more than 2.5 billions of reais in business. And just to give a glimpse about how we connect when we are talking about why ECHOS is very unique, because of course, first of all, we try to seek for unique ingredients, unique based on traditional knowledge from local communities that they have shared with us that have these kind of properties. But then we need to prove if there is any scientific evidence that these kind of ingredients can deliver this kind of benefit. If we prove that there is scientific benefits, then we need to establish, using the principles of fair trade, sustainable sources with those families, which means they are going to source to us, and then we are going to develop the products, combine in the state of the art in cosmetic science with other ingredients to create the products and to have the positive impact, because we are going to share value between the communities, not only paying using the principles of fair trade, but also based on how they can aggregate value to the product and do the primary benefit of those ingredients, but as well as sharing benefit sharing for them, which is in Portuguese. And the translation from English is not it's not good, so it's not obviously so, but just to understand in Portuguese is repartição de benefícios. So which means that it's the money that we are obliged by law to give to them. So then with this money, they will be able to have an additional income, and therefore there is a better chance for them to protect the Amazon. And I think that to finalize, there is this unique case about Ukuba. Ukuba is this Red Sea that you can see on boiling on the rivers. that you can see inside it, there is this content that we are able to extract these ingredients that can support us about producing body lotions, because there is a high level benefit to hydrate the skin. So just you to understand, in the past, the ucuba tree was cut it and was chopping down just to produce broomsticks, so cabo de vassoura, and also to use at the construction sector. And then we proved to the communities that if you just collect the seeds in the river, we are going to be able to pay you 3 times more. And paying 3 times more, not only you are going to receive 3 times more, but also you're going to remain with the standing forest, which means that you are going to be able to collect more seeds in the next season without going further inside the forest. And just you to understand the level of severity about this situation in the past, in the 90s, of course, there is a red list from an international organization called IUCN that they put the ucuba tree in the threatened species red list. So, and nowadays, based on this effort that Natura has been leading, we are able, of course, to remove the ucuba tree from this red list. So it's a result about how you can combine a solution that is going to address the social and environmental challenge. And of course, before I open for question, let me just explain this drawing that you can see in the screen. It's a drawing that has been created in 2021. There is an event from United Nations called COP, which stands for Conference of Parties. It's an event that is hosted in annual basis. And for us, as a Brazilian citizenship, we need to be very proud. This is an agenda from United Nations that was defined and was established in an event that was hosted in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, called ECO 92, or officially it was called the Earth Summit 92. But there is this expression about U92 or ECO 92, very famous as well. So based on this meeting, global meeting, United Nations has set 3 important agendas. One of them to address the climate crisis, the other one to address biodiversity loss, the third one to address the situation about the water scarcity. So, and you can see, and for those who can read the different expression, it's about, of course, recognizing the different efforts, different frameworks, the different topics that are totally connected with climate crisis that we need to address together. And also there is an expression I cannot see here. It was in Portuguese that regarding the indigenous people that were attending in this conference. But anyway, I'm open now for question. It seems that Pollyana and Renata will moderate these sessions. So feel free even to raise the question if you want to do in Portuguese. And then I'm glad to answer the question. And don't be shy. I think in the end of the day, when we're talking about, and I think the purpose of this project is to stimulate, of course, how people can have an environment to practice English and to speak and to listen on English side. So it's a matter about practicing. So sometimes we do not know exactly the right expression, but without trying, we are not going to improve the proficiency that we have in a foreign language. So back to you, Pollyana.
Well, again, thank you so much for today. I feel like this has been a very interesting lecture speaking. I like very much the work of Natura. Especially because of the forest sustainability, I feel like it's very important that we preserve the environment and that we do it in the right way. Also, backing up these small families that can gain from these actions. So I appreciate a lot today's your presentation. So thank you very much. I hope that one day I can also join Natura because it's something that I really like about cosmetics and the natural aspects of it. So thank you again. I will go back to speaking Portuguese then. A todas as perguntas vão estar abertas, vocês podem fazer as perguntas em português. A Renata vai provavelmente parar de gravar agora, para deixar vocês mais à vontade, podem fazer qualquer tipo de pergunta que vocês quiserem, e aí é só um de cada vez que eu vou chamando. Escrevam no chat quem tiver o interesse de fazer as perguntas, e aí a gente abre para vocês.
Isso mesmo, Pollyana, agradecer aí. Eu vou já parar a gravação para a gente ficar mais à vontade aí, né? Essa conversa, aproveitar que o Keyvan está aí, está disponível e agradecer. Acho que, né, mostrou muito. A gente já tem essa percepção que realmente a Natura ela tem essa preocupação, mas eu acho que com a sua fala, né, mais e mais. Mas quem quiser pode perguntar. Eu também quero fazer umas perguntas. Eu vou parar a gravação aqui.